All right. So, once again, welcome to another Virtual Coffee with Chief. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome two of our amazing 505th Command Patrol Wing commanders to the table. To my right, I have the commander, Lieutenant Colonel Veronica Williams, 505th Communications Squadron. I'm sorry, to my middle there. I'm sorry. Let me get my bearings right. Colonel Williams right here. Welcome, ma'am. And now to my very right, I'll have Lieutenant Colonel Carlene, 605th Test and Evaluation Squadrons. Welcome. Welcome to the table, and welcome for this special month, Women's History Month. So yeah, I thought it'd be amazing just to have you guys at the table, kind of share some of your knowledge and some of your experiences going along the way, and also to help me recognize our females in arms and stuff like that across the board, and what you guys have brought to the table, and show that, hey, we're all here to just fight together, and I love it just being with you. So would you guys like to open up with any comments?
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it, an opportunity to talk, especially sharing this opportunity to learn. We wish that Lieutenant Colonel Post could be here, another one of our female squadron commanders here in the wing, and so she'll be here in spirit. So
absolutely.
I'm really fortunate to be in this wing right now.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so to start this out, as always, if you guys that are out there in virtual land have any questions that you'd like to ask myself or the commanders, please chime on in on the virtual, and we have our amazing Miss Deb coming in the background. She'll be able to facilitate some of those questions for us. So let's get started. So I'd like to open up first question. Why did you individually choose to join the military?
Growing up in Abilene, Texas, didn't really have much background with the military. Dice Air Force Base was there, but I didn't really interact with the base that much. However, when I got into high school, I was able to join the junior ROTC program, an Air Force program out there, and I worked with some amazing individuals. They're a retired chief and retired colonel who just brought a level of structure and purpose to my life through the junior ROTC program. Being a member of a team, being able to serve in the community and different things like that. And then my junior year, the colonel let me know about scholarship opportunities at college. And nobody else in my family had completed college at that point. So to have that educational opportunity and then to be able to take that and transition it into a commitment to the service of arms was just an incredible opportunity. So it was just a door that opened for me that I didn't expect and hadn't really planned on, and has just been a complete windfall for me ever since.
Okay, awesome. That's awesome. What about you, man?
Well, it's something kind of similar, actually. In high school, we also had an Air Force Junior ROTC program, and so as part of that, and I had an amazing chief, who was our instructor for my full 4 years there, and Chief would always tell these awesome stories about everything that he did and his experiences. And so, I thought that's something really interesting that I wanted to be part of. And, I also don't come from a family with a lot of military background in it, so his influence really that helped me to consider that. And this similar experience also junior year is like, hey, they have a scholarship. I knew I wanted to go to college. My parents were like, hey, you're going to go to college. I wanted to be an astronaut, and I was going to join one of the services, right? And so, the Air Force was it. And so Chief, helped me navigate the scholarship process, and he's been a mentor of mine for a long time, and so I really appreciate it.
Good. I love the same commonality, especially having a good chief in the mix there. Again, like I say, we've been around the block for a little while, so again, we have a lot to share knowledge-wise and kind of help you get to where you want to be, in your professional and your career life. So again, having those positive influences is definitely helps you make your decisions. I know for me personally, my dad was Army. So we bounced around, so I was so used to being around the military environment. So eventually, as I did go to college and started, and then when my grades wasn't where they needed to be, my dad said, hey son, you got to figure out what you want to do with your life. So I was like, well, I always thought I was going to go into the military, didn't know I was going to go this soon, but hey, here I am. So it's been one of the best journeys I've ever made, and so I really enjoy every aspect of it, and having these opportunities to kind of understand where people come from. And their backgrounds and what motivates them in the military and stuff like that. So that's what really kind of keeps me charged up and keeps me going. So again, just having that commonality is something special. All right. So we're going to say discuss your career path, include if any have first women in the Air Force, or first not women in the Air Force, but any first for you guys, you know, in your career path? Any first, hey, I was first squadron commander in this unit, or any first for you guys that you can kind of go over?
So just at my career path, and
Yeah.
that's one of the first. I don't know if I have a whole lot of first. I have some interesting first experience maybe, but you know, I actually started out in the Air Force as an engineer,
Nice.
and then so I did 4 years as an engineer. A lot of great experience and a lot of good people. So it was those people, you know, that helped me. You know, the why I wanted to stay. Right, was that experience that I had.
Right.
And then I cross-trained to be an air battle manager.
Nice.
And so, so that was a really great experience. And again, you know, great people, working with great people in the mission. You know, I did air battle manager, and then I went to school. And after school, I went to staff. And when I was in staff, I realized, you know, that it wasn't until I left, you know, that I was the first female branch chief in the branch that I was in. We didn't even know. So that's kind of a mark in where we are today. That it wasn't that, you know, it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, at first, I think I was the first nursing mom to attend Arctic survival and continue doing, you know, helping all of the Arctic survival.
Yeah.
So we had some interesting conversations on how to accommodate that. So,
Yeah.
But it worked out really well because we actually had 2 female airmen who were following me in the next courses, and so I kind of helped. They were also nursing moms, and so we were able to help figure that process out for them while we were doing that, you know, in sub-zero temperatures.
Absolutely. And that's pretty awesome how you say flexibility. How do we flex? How do we adjust? And how do we adjust and go? We're not going to just let, you know, nature kind of slow down the process. You got to figure it out. We'll make it work. And, you know, as the military evolves and adjusts over time, like I say, being, hey, the first female was like, you know, at a certain point in time, it's like, okay, it's nothing new. This is what we do.
Yep.
So, you know, we don't have to, you know, be like, hey, you're the first to do this, but like, this is the norm now. So get used to it. What about yourself?
So I wouldn't say necessarily that I've had first in a specific position or anything like that, but I will say coming here and being a squadron commander was the first time I had another female junior officer say to me, "You're the first female commander that I've ever been able to work with," and to kind of be that first for her.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you said, you're bringing people together and highlighting Women's History Month, and you know, there's a lot that's been talked about of part of getting off after diversity inclusion is seeing leaders that look like you more often. So being able to, you know, thanks again for bringing myself and Colonel Sims here to say, yeah, I mean, this isn't not the norm anymore.
Right.
There are women in leadership positions, and that can easily be you one day. Yeah, not necessarily a first for myself, but to be that first for some others has been really great.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that is beautiful because, again, you help set the tone for their sakes. Those young airmen and young female airmen officers out there like, hey, you know, my boss was, you know, female commander. I can definitely walk in those shoes and seeing somebody that's, you know, kind of broken down those barriers and continue to push forward. So there's no limits. You know, as the way I look at it now is like, hey, there's no limits on how high or far you can go. You know, because those barriers have been knocked down, so it just opens up the door a little bit more for the extra throughput folks to come in and get to those levels. So I love it. It makes me feel proud on the inside being a part of something like that, and you know, being around it just to see the Air Force how it's changed over the years. Because again, it wasn't always like that, you know. And we've all had to go through our challenges and struggles to kind of get to where we are. But you know, before it was more or less, hey, yeah, got him in, that's it. But again, putting them in positions of authority and equal, you know, to other commanders and stuff. I think that's exactly where we need to be, and going forward in the future, even better. You know, so I appreciate you guys, you know, being where you're at, and look forward to, hey, the new things that you got, you know, on the horizon for leading forward and stuff. So positive examples around. So let's talk about role models. Who are some of your military role models, or general role models in general?
So, you know, we talked earlier before we started, you know, my mom has a lot of sisters, my dad has a sister, and I have had a lot of, you know, positive female role models in my life. So they're very, you know, strong women, and looking to them, right, to start out. But military role models, you know, I've been fortunate, you know, as an air battle manager, or just, you know, like I was in, you know, being in the Air Force now, particularly when I was, you know, a junior captain and moving up, you know, had General Lori Robinson. You know, she was my first wing commander when I it's an ABM.
Nice.
And, just to look to her and to see folks like her, right, and women like her, and to say, well, and to make it seem like we said, well, she's there, and so we can be there too, right? We can just go do that. So it was a great time, right? We had General Robinson, the first female combatant commander for the DoD, right? And then General Kolakowski, the AFMC commander, right? To have both of them at the same time, and so to look to both of them, there was a Major General retired Teresa Carter. She's a Purdue grad. And so she led the civil engineering team. She's also an engineer and started up IMC. And so looking to folks like that have done those things. Sort of female, but I've also had a lot of male role models, and a lot of them are my former squadron commanders who are now wing commanders, or other wing commanders who are now NAC commanders or other things. And so looking to them, and so I've been very fortunate in the leadership that I've had, and looking to them for leading the way or help paving the way for other people.
There you go. Very good.
So my military role models have really been the people that I've come across in my life and in the force who are passionate about people. I didn't realize this would be a military role model until I met my now spouse. I'm mill to mill. My husband is a Navy brat, and my mother-in-law was one of the first women that they allowed to go through naval OTS.
Wow. Awesome.
But she dealt with a lot of hardship. She was mill to mill as well, trying to raise a family of 4 kids, her and her spouse dealing with Navy deployments, and so she just did a tremendous job, and through all of it has just been a completely gentle soul. And so she really was, after I met my spouse and got to meet my mother-in-law, she became a real strong role model for how do you manage life in the military and your family to ensure that you're taking care of everything across the board. So, in addition, when I was in the ROTC program at Angelo State University, go Rams!
All right.
Where I had a female instructor there, at the time, Major Darcy Maloney, now Lieutenant Colonel, retired, but still very active in our Women's Officers Forum, and she was always Major Mom. She was the one who took care of all of us, and any time that I had, as a female, someone tell me that I can't, she was there when I turned around and said, yes, you can. You can do that.
Absolutely.
Don't let anybody stand in your way, especially yourself.
Yes.
She knows that we can really sell ourselves short sometimes whenever we hear it from other people. So she was a real strong presence as shaping me and getting ready for the Air Force. And then I will do one last plug for Master Sergeant Carlene Wallace. I worked with her when I was a wing exec. She was tech sergeant as the chief's exec, and she was just a powerhouse to work with as an exec team. And I knew she'd make senior NCO. She's a phenomenal woman, a phenomenal mentor, and a phenomenal mom. And so I look forward to one day having the opportunity to work with Carlene again. Hope you're out there.
Hi, Carlene.
But again, just amazing people who are passionate about the service that they give and the people that they want to help along the way. Have really been kind of those trendsetters for me.
Very good. Awesome. So with that, along the lines of mentors or role models, what type of role model do you see yourselves are as, to commanders, female commanders? Do you see yourselves as a positive, well, of course you see yourself as a positive role model, but what type of role model do you hope or you want to project out towards, say, some of your peers or your subordinates that might be looking up to you and wanting to walk in your footsteps?
I think one of the key things that I've learned through my experience in the Air Force is that I always thought I knew best. But there's really a great team of individuals out there who really know where I'm going to be able to bloom. And everybody says, bloom where you're planted. But I think my assignments team, the mentors and supervisors that I worked with along the way have been very conscious within my career field in particular of balancing all of these things. What does the Air Force need? What does the unit need? And what does the individual need to really make it the most effective assignment for each person. And especially, again, being dual military, my husband's in the same career field, we're offset by a year, so that can make assignments relatively difficult.
Yes.
So we ask for things, the team would look at it and be like, we know you asked for this, but this is really where y'all belong. It's going to meet most of your needs, and it's going to get the Air Force what it needs as well. And again, we've asked for something and we've never gotten it, but every time we end up somewhere new, it's been an amazing assignment, and we've met amazing people along the way. So there's a lot of faith that I have in the Air Force taking care of me. So I'm hoping that I can instill that with others, because again, there's a lot that's not in your control, and a lot of people want to control things, but realizing that there are teams out there that are really looking out for you, I think is a good way to approach your service.
Absolutely. Amy?
Well, similar, right? The Air Force is going to take care of you, but at the same time, showing people that it's okay to want to do something different, right? And to reach out, and if there's something different that you want to do, and you're passionate about doing that, then not being afraid to seek out those opportunities, talking to your leadership about that, making sure they understand so that they can help you. When I wanted to cross-train, my leadership was really supportive, and they helped me along the way, and at the same time, right, they knew I wanted to cross into a different career field, but they continued to give me opportunities in the career field that I was currently in, right? And so, making sure that you find something that you're passionate about, and then if that's what you want to go do, then then do it, right? Try to do it, but make sure you communicate with the team so that they can help set you up.
Yeah, and having that support always makes things a lot easier. When they really support you and help you get to where you want to be, that's always amazing. Just to have that level of hey, you can do this, we'll support you to get there. So that's a good thing. So, okay, next, first I'll check to see if we have any questions from the Facebook community.
No questions, just have the 605th saying represent on Facebook there, so.
Very good, all right. Okay, so on to the next question. So this one a little bit deeper. So when you entered the military, did you ever feel like you had to work harder or perform a little harder than your male counterparts so that they would recognize you for the performance that you're putting out?
So I will say no. I mean, it's, again, as Colonel Sims talked to earlier, we're kind of at this point, really transitionally, that a female being in the environment isn't, different anymore. Although there's still not a great number of women in our career fields, being there isn't seen as an abnormality or anything like that. So me being up, side by side with my male officer counterparts as a second lieutenant, there was really all merit was based on what you brought, to the team. And I've been, again, very fortunate to have leadership that looked at the person based on the performance that they were able to bring forward, and all the other stuff didn't matter. So again, I've been very fortunate that I don't feel like that I've had to overcome a lot of different things. I've been the bearer of a lot of the different progresses that the Air Force has made over time. With I've got 2 children. I had the old maternity leave with one, and I got the extended maternity leave for the second, which was just incredibly fortunate to have that. But even with the shorter maternity leave the first time around, I had a squadron that was incredibly understanding and was able to help me and support me through, especially those first few months of still nursing, and taking the time to go to the CDC to do that kind of stuff. So again, and then Lactation Rooms, that one was a big one when I went to Air Command and Staff College, and knowing that they had that kind of support, and they had other women that were there to help support you through that process and continue to be the mom that you want it to be. So I think, again, we are here in the prime of our career at a prime time for the Air Force and our continual evolution of being as inclusive and diverse as possible. So
very much so.
Yeah, very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually talked about this earlier, because I told her, I don't think that I've really experienced a whole lot of that, and we have kind of similar experiences. When I joined, I joined the Air Force in 2003, so not long after 9/11. We had the Air Force, pretty big then, and I was fortunate that when I joined, there was as an engineer, there's a whole group of other female engineers too, and so we had a group of folks there. But I think that I've been really fortunate that it hasn't been anything. I'm not saying that it doesn't still happen though, right? And so because Vern and I haven't really experienced a whole lot of that, we do understand that some people do experience those things.
Right.
That's not to say, when we talked about being pregnant and and having children. So I had my first one in the old maternity leave, right? And then the second one was the new parental leave. And so, big difference there, but again, supportive group of team members. I think, when some things, like when I was pregnant and, flying with my first one, with my oldest, and, there's sometimes I think, when you feel like, because, I couldn't fly, that while I was that whole time that I was pregnant. And, there just, there were a few comments, about like, oh man, well, we can't, can't schedule you, or you can't do, certain
Right.
things. And so, was making sure that, that I was still an active team member, part of the team, doing everything I could, whether it's all the simulator events or everything else that I could still do. But, even then, it wasn't necessarily negative, which is, like scheduling that kind of stuff, but not in really in a bad way. And so, but, I've been, like Vern said, so very fortunate that I've had so many people that, looked at, took a chance on, maybe somebody they didn't know, or, just a good work for somebody, or, look at the records and really base it on, your history of performance.
Yeah.
And so, or your current performance, and really judge you on that. So I've been, again, very fortunate.
Very good, very good. And, all that goes into Air Force moving in positive directions, having the right people in the right positions say, hey, how about we take care of our nursing mothers and, our newly born children and moms, having that bonding time to increase those leaves and stuff like that. So they can have that, because it's a valuable point in a child or in a mother's period of time, having those brand new babies. So you have to have that bonding time. So yeah, I was fortunate, I've got triplets. So, the wife was like, hey, can I go back and get some of that for each kid, But, it's a valuable point in time, and, and having that support system within your squadron, and you just understand that, hey, you take the time that you need, because that's what matters at this point. And, having members understand that, hey, my unit's going to support me to take this time with my family and stuff like that, and let me really bond with my family. So, changing in the right direction, it's great to see that the military's got behind that, and it really pushes that, like, hey, this is your time. And hey, fathers, this is your time as well, so that you guys can have that time, because it's nothing like feeling like you're just now starting to get bonded with your child, and I gotta go back and work, and I gotta take them to the youth center. Not saying anything bad with the youth center, but hey, that's what it's good for their immune system. That's what they say, I was like, well, my child was never sick before then, but it helps build them up. But I was like, okay, if we have to, but I just love seeing the different strides that's been made in progression going forward. So that kind of takes me into my next question. So would you guys like to discuss some of the changes that you've seen for female airmen over your career?
So I think we've already kind of talked about the biggest one, for me anyway, that is the change in the parental leave. And that was a huge difference for us, between the first one and the second one, I think. But, and then for, and not just for me, but, for the members of the squadron, so we can, allow fathers to have more, give fathers more time, right? Whether as the secondary caregiver or even primary caregiver, and give them more time to, bond with their child, and also, help out the family as a whole, right? And so, I think that as a whole for me is just, and for, the folks who work has been just really awesome. Obviously the hair rays are really great, right?
Yes. Next question.
But, I think, we've had a lot more discussion, a lot more visibility on things like, female uniform items and those types of things, which I think have been really helpful, make it, better for us to do our jobs. And, Chief, I'll skip ahead to that, the hair ray thing. Having long hair and then going to fly and having you have your hair one way when you're doing, your mission, and then, coming back to the office and putting your hair back up and then going back. And, I think that, from that perspective, in addition to all of the, being more inclusive and the types of hair that, that we can support with those. And I think, and then for medical reasons and all those things, it's all been really awesome. So those types of things, uniforms, maternity leave, parental leave, and then the hair rates, I guess, are really the big things that stand out to me. Like I said, I haven't, other big things really haven't had, a whole lot of other barriers that have been impactful to me personally.
I would say, in addition to the changes in maternity leave, is the extended period to recover for physical fitness testing. Just because, I mean, especially, and I ended up going through surgeries, so that's an incredibly, having a kid, no matter what, is an incredibly difficult process, and it's a lot on the body. So having some additional time to really recoup, and it changes from kid to kid. It's my first kid. I could still go run my mile and a half up until month 8, but
Right,
I
right.
hit month 4 with my second kid, and I'm exhausted after
Right.
3 steps. So, again, being able to take the time necessary to really recover and be, the fit to fight individual that you need to be, and providing that level of care, I think was a big boon with my second child. So,
Right.
yeah, I very much appreciate that as the changes.
I think that, things like that, like you mentioned, are, those changes, really make it less daunting, I think, for all of us, right? I was a lot older, my youngest is 2, so, and I'm over 40, and so, recovering from that, and, like you said, giving more time, it makes it less daunting, and makes it, I think, more desirable for people to stay around, because, we're more accommodating for,
Absolutely.
the way the females having children, and then, just making, I guess, I guess the daunting part of it, right? Like, I've got to get back, I've got to get fit, I had my first one, I also had a surgery for my first one, and then, 6 months later, trying to get ready for my fitness test, and like, I'm, doing the sit-ups again and everything else, it was a challenge, and I'll tell you, that was something, but, when the standards changed, when the rates changed, and they were more accommodating, definitely, made my second child, it was a lot less stressful, I guess, I left with the family. I was stressed out, less about it, I had more time to recover, and made it better for all of us, for sure.
Yeah, I like to talk on that, just from a spouse's perspective. My wife is also active duty, and so similar concept, she had surgery and something like that, but the bounce back, and seeing her stressed out about it, trying to get ready for a PT test and get herself together, I was like, well, you're just carrying 3 babies, so, so can we get a little tight, but the AFI was, hey, this is AFI. I was like, oh, well, that makes no sense, especially if a woman has to go through surgery, abdominal surgery, having a C-section or whatever, you're expecting them to do crunches, or sit-ups, 6 months later, whatever it might be. I was like, the body doesn't always bounce back like that. So, I'm happy to see that they're moving in the right direction and taking those things into consideration to give a little bit more time. So again, it just takes the right people in the right places, and enough folks raising a flag like, this is wrong, we got to do better. And so that kind of leads me into the new hair rig, and some of the grooming standards and stuff, which is great because me and Colonel Dickens had an opportunity to kind of coordinate off on that, as it came through. When I got it, I was like, all right, boss, let me digest this for a second as I'm reading through it, because again, visually it was like, okay, well, I haven't seen that in 20-something years. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but again, the way that the package was put together was a no-brainer. I was like, from the medical aspect of it, for women having alopecia or whatever it might be, and just the level of effort that it takes, having your hair up and the stress that it puts on the hair and all that other stuff, it was really spelled out, extremely detailed, to a point where I was like, why haven't we done this years ago? I was like, yes, so I was happy to coordinate on that with the boss, and so happy to see it kind of come to fruition and stuff like that. And now look at it, it's like normal. It's that fast. I was like, okay, fine. She's got a ponytail, so let's go. So I just love seeing that, and I'm looking forward to all the future changes that's going to happen. Because again, I don't mind change. Change is great, especially when they're listening to all parties that's involved. Everybody has a voice, and they're like, hey, what about this? Or hey, can we adjust this? Because it doesn't have to be all built for male standards. We have female partners in there as well, so it's like, hey, let's make this. Everybody has a voice at the table, so we can take all points of view into consideration when making choices. So we're headed in the right direction, which is great. Deb, do we have any?
No questions, but one thing you didn't discuss was about the lactation rooms, and like the one that did the interview with you, ma'am,
Yes.
at Hurlburt.
So there was guidance that has come down here in the past year that mandates that lactation rooms be available within the unit. So I was lucky to come in on, my predecessor had started already designating when they did the remodel in our facility, and we do have a room that's set aside for both us in the 505th Comm Squadron, as well as we share the building with the 505th Combat Training Squadron. So if you have any female airmen that need to pump or bring their baby into nurse, or even if there are bonding times again that dads need with their kids who are at the CDC, you've got that room to be able to take advantage of it, and it's been really nice to see again that it's mandated, and that to a certain extent that it's regulated. Hey, you need to make sure you have these kinds of items available, because not everybody knows what goes into a lactation room.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, coming into that environment. So
Yeah.
it was really nice coming again out of Air Command and Staff College, knowing that they had that there. When I was at US Cyber Command and NSA, they had rooms there. So to come into a squadron that was already prepared for that was really, really awesome to come into.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we saw that, and the first thing we did was went, found the room. We had there's a room that belonged to the Comm Squadron. They weren't using it anymore, so we kicked all the stuff out. Like, not the installation.
Yes.
Anyway, and yes, so we're setting it up too. We don't currently have any, nursing moms or anything like that, or any, but yeah. So we're in the process of setting ours up too, and that was a big deal for me as well because. I've never been in a unit that actually had a lactation room.
Right.
And so, pumping in the hangar,
Yeah.
right? Well, maintenance is over there, I'm in the testing room or whatever, or just conference rooms or
Right.
offices or
Right.
stuff. And so that was a really big deal with me too. So I'm really, thanks for bringing that up there. That was
That's
awesome.
good. Yeah, that is really good.
And for you, I know that I saw, you talked about that before, and that's fantastic, that I absolutely agree. The fact that it's mandated and when I sent it out to the squadron, I'm like, why would we do this? And then I'm like, hey, let me tell you about my experience.
Right,
and then I'm like, it's gross, it's not healthy for anybody, and it's awkward and stuff. So that's fantastic.
That's good. So what is some of the feedback that you guys might have heard from your peers or either younger officers or airmen from, say, hair standards to you now, the lactation or the pumping rooms or anything like that? What's some of the feedback that you're receiving, if any?
I guess it's not necessarily about anything in general or anything in particular. It is more about this general push for inclusion.
Right.
I've got someone in my unit who's going to be going to school next year, and they're getting ready for it and realizing, hey, I also want to start a family and things like that. And it's okay, well, is that accommodating enough? Is this a good time and different things? So to again realize that the forces out there are looking out for women in the ranks and making sure that, it's a difficult decision when to start a family.
Right.
To know that there are those things that are out there that can help take care of you as you make that transition, I think has been the kind of positive feedback that I've gotten from members of my unit and individuals, again, on the women's forum, that we get a lot of good feedback about these changes, providing a lot of support for women that they didn't know that was out there before.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had some really positive feedback in the unit about the hair regs, and so making it easier, right? For folks and to make sure, for us to make sure that we can be in standards and still be comfortable, So that's really important as well. And so we've had a lot of good feedback about that. But the Women's Initiative team, they're some miracle workers, and we're very thankful for them and carrying the water for us. And so that's. The great things they're doing, like you said, the forum and seeing all the positive support and the good feedback on the changes that are being made, and so identifying those forums where people talking, we're having opportunities where we have lots of different bases and wings are hosting different women's forums and symposiums and not just for women, right, but identifying family needs and just needs of the military members, and so it's an opportunity for all of us to continue to grow and figure out, where we do need to change. And we have a lot of talk in our squadron about, is it my Air Force or is it, my young airman's Air Force? Is it both? And what do we need to do to make sure that we're, making sure that we're the right Air Force for all of us?
Absolutely. And I think when you make a point with that, is just like that involves everyone's input. Like say, not just the older, older people, but the younger ones as well. Because again, like say, either my Air Force or my young airman's Air Force, eventually, hey, there's going to be the younger airman's Air Force and then their younger airman's Air Force. It's just a perpetuating system that continues to grow. But again, as long as we can, like say, include everyone, that inclusivity, that everyone's got a voice and it comes across, that we're listening and we're working towards those changes in a positive light, which is great. I think.
Yep, we got one question. What will be the next change concerning inclusion?
Good question. Next, just change for inclusion. I'm not really sure what the next big change is on the horizon. There's several things that's going to be trickling down. Me personally, I don't know what the next big change is for inclusion. If you guys have anything that you know of.
So I think for tackling some of the inclusion things, I just got a notification of a new format for the GEOS right?
Yes, sir.
That has, I think, more better written questions that get after, some, trying to get after some of the, root causes, or trying to identify, some better ways to tackle the different problems that we have. And so I think that, giving people opportunity to provide feedback in that form, I think, and adjusting those things is, one of the next steps. I know that the new videographers, they implemented that in January. They're going to try to have everyone do that again soon. And so I've seen something about that. And so, that'll give, some good direct feedback. So that's also a plug for anyone out there listening. It's really important that you fill out those surveys, right?
Absolutely.
Your problems aren't addressed if we don't know about them, right? And that's one way to help identify those problems, issues or concerns that people have, or the good things that are going on as well. You don't only have to fill out your DX if you have negative comments.
Right. That's true. Yes.
So, but some things like that too.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. If I come across any new data or anything like that, work in reference to inclusion and stuff like that, I'll always try to push that stuff out to the superintendents so we can kind of share that, facilitate that information. I know there's several big things that are on the horizon, in the airman category, because I'll touch on that in a few questions down the line. But yeah, always for inclusion stuff, I'm trying to look and see what's the next thing. There's several things that are going on right now, so it's hard to kind of pinpoint, hey, this is the next main one. But I'll definitely circle back and try and find some stuff. Like, hey, this is the next thing I think that's bubbling up that you might want to pay attention to. Okay, so both of you guys so how long in command for each of you so far?
Just under a year, so June will be my year.
June is your 1 year mark?
May.
And May for your 1 year mark. Okay, so what are some of the things that you have learned as your time in command, as squadron commanders?
Lots.
Yeah. Plenty.
It's plenty. Where do we start? I think being in command, we talk about being in command during COVID environment, right? So, learning different communication techniques, different ways to keep the squadron in touch, and new technologies, right? So we've learned a lot about Zoom and Teams and
Facebook.
Yes, and Facebook for sure. But I think learning different ways to communicate with different groups of people, right? Because not everyone uses Facebook, and not everyone, is savvy on all the different technologies and stuff. So some of those different things. What you hear, or what you understand, or what's going on in the unit, at the different levels, it changes, at different levels and where you are, right? And so, making sure that, when you're communicating to squadron, you're talking to people, you have a good feedback mechanism, so that you don't have to wait till they be asked to get their feedback, right? That, whether it's your open door policy, or you have other different ways to get feedback from people, so you make sure that you can, understand the needs of the squadron as best you can. And so, trying to figure out different ways to do that, I think, is another big thing for me.
I guess I've always been, it's been difficult for me to delegate.
Right.
So, but you come into squadron command, and there's no way you can do it all.
Yes.
It's just, there's so much to do from the people and mission side of it, and just taking the time to say, sometimes when it comes to ops, I've got to let ops take care of itself.
Right.
And I really need to focus on the people and doing what I can. It's difficult and different in a COVID environment when you want to be very conscious of, hey, I want to maintain 6 feet and stay masked and not spend too much time, hovering in one place. But doing what you can to still get to know the people, because I continue to hear this is your last real opportunity to do that when it comes to command levels, because you get further, higher up in command, you've got so many people below you that it becomes, practically impossible to get to know everybody to the degree that you can as a squadron commander. So I am by no means a pro at it, still working on it. But everything I can do to learn more and more about the people in this first year is really what the goal is, so that the second year, is not as much about, getting used to the organization and the tempo, but how am I making sure that the people are taken care of to a point that I'm ensuring success well beyond myself.
Absolutely.
It's my goal. We'll see.
If I get there. I like it. It's a good goal.
You guys are knocking it out of the park, just to let you know. Just knocking it out of the park. So this is a question I normally ask, so some of our NCOs and airmen and stuff like that, because again, you know, I understand we can all get so focused into the getting the mission done, we're just hacking away at it. But take a time or take a moment to step back and really observe what you're part of. Do you guys ever take a moment to step back and reflect on being a squadron commander and what that really feels like? What's that mean to you? Do you ever take time to do that? And if you don't mind sharing some of your thoughts about that.
It's the, oh wow, I'm a squadron commander.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is, you know, and it's every week, and it's like, wow, I'm still a squadron commander. You know, I wouldn't say I'm killing it at this, but you know, I'm working in this role that for, you know, the vast majority of my career has been like, that's the goal. I want to be a squadron commander, to actually be in it, and then to take a step back and say, okay, I feel like personally I've achieved something that I really set out to do, and so. Again, trying to take that and turn it around to, okay, great, I've achieved something. How can I make that better?
Right, absolutely.
And how can I make sure that, again, the unit and the people are set up for success? Because at this point is where you kind of get to that, you know, it's not about me and what I bring to the team anymore. It's about how do I ensure this team can carry on without me.
Right.
You know, I don't want to be the only guiding mechanism. So building up the individuals within. You know, even if they're going to, you know, for our military folks, they're in PCS in a couple of years, how do I set them up for success and get them into the positions they need to be to one day come back here or to another squadron and be a great squadron commander. And for our civilian population, we're over 2/3 civilian in my organization, making sure that the environment is one that's conducive, that allows them to progress and, you know, build the technical expertise that they want, as well as if they're looking for professional development opportunities or anything like that, and do what we can to support, because it's just as important to retain our civilian personnel as it is to retain our military.
Absolutely.
So again, taking that step back and, you know, looking at the, I've achieved something, and then turn that around into the, well, then how do I make that work for everybody else? Is really what I reflect on at this point.
Oh, awesome.
That's good for the follow-up. Yeah. I remember when I came back from, you know, the change of command, and it was during COVID, and, you know, I think it was me and Miss Deb and like 2 other people in the room. And so, you know, but, you know, I remember just standing there walking in the squadron and just looking around, I'm like, this is awesome. You know, I was like, oh, this is great, you know, and, you know, General Brown, he's, you know, really, you know, pushing for a lot of change in the Air Force, right, and driving a lot of change. And, you know, General Goldstein started that before, and, you know, General Brown's really taking that and you know, pushing us to do better and to do more. And so, you know, we have a lot of change going on in the squadron too. And so, you know, looking at how we make the squadron, how we make the squadron better, right, to better fit the Air Force today, and to better, you know, what we need today, and, you know, how we look at how we do our mission, and then, you know, are our people set up to do that? And how we organize correctly, do we have the resources, the training that we need, the expertise that we need, and you know, trying to make sure that we're set to provide that support, you know, because we do tests. We're a test squadron, right? The ACC's only C2I is our test squadron, operational C2I is our test squadron, right? And so we test all of the systems, you know, all the C2 systems for the Air Force, right? From the JTACs all the way up to, you know, the AOCs, the JTAC to JFAC, as we like to say. And you know, and as we continue to communicate and reflect on, you know, what our squadron impact is on the Air Force, and making sure that our squadron can continue to thrive, to make sure that making sure that the warfighter has the right technology, you know, so that they can do their jobs, so that we can do our jobs. And so, you know, always looking to that big picture vision and what that is, and, you know, what's my role in making sure that we get there.
Good. Okay. Good answers, all good. You guys make this super easy for me. I love it. So are there any current books or books that you guys would recommend on, you know, leadership or development that you recommend to the audience?
So from leadership perspective, and I've just started, but it was something that was recommended when I was at the ACC Squadron Commanders course by part of our A6 staff, was a book called Radical Candor. And it's about how to be a compassionate and collaborative leader, which is something I think is still very new. You've heard about, you know, intrusive leadership and being, you know, engaged and involved, but I think as we talk about CTG, outside is more of the engaging leader. And so Radical Candor is about how you can be open and honest and giving feedback, receiving feedback, and using that as a way to ensure that you're collaborating with the team. So again, just at the very beginning of it, you know, read the back of the book, got the general gist, and starting my way through to see, again, there's a lot of, you know, showing people that I'm just another person, but I'm here to help and drive us forward as a team. So working through that. On The less professional development side, but just kind of the one I keep on my bedside table right now is the answer is Alex Trebek's memoir. So I grew up watching Jeopardy, and I loved school, and so this neat quiz game was what I really liked. So having something that's a little bit more kind of leisurely to kind of mix with the professional development is something that I find really useful.
That's awesome. That's good.
Nice. Reading is my, when you go back to restore your energy, right? That's what I do, and I generally read a lot of non-book related stuff. To get my energy back. But I'm a huge history fan, so anything about history. But my superintendent, he's awesome. He's a big reader too, and so I'm trying to read similar books, so we can discuss some of those things. And the last book we talked about, we were at TD1. He's like, hey, I just finished this book called Seas of Fire. It's about Trafalgar, right? And so back in the day, so it's a naval history book kind of, and it talks about different viewpoints of different the military for different countries at that time, right? And how they what they thought about their military, what they thought about their navy, and how they treated their leaders, and how their leaders how they empowered their leaders or they didn't, right? And different ways to do that, and then how they how those different militaries treated just the individuals in the organizations, and so some of the differences, right? And then the viewpoint of the government on the military in general. And so anyway, it's interesting. About halfway through the book, and so I recommend if you really like history and lots of details, like minute by minute details and exactly where ships are and stuff. But just any kind of book, you can draw lessons, I think, from anything, right? Whether those are just those mystery books or whatever, right? Just to keep your mind engaged. But I think that there's opportunity, and anytime you have an opportunity to read about a history book, find any kind of book that, or if you hear about some, any kind of military engagement or not, go find a book on that, or ask somebody, it's like, hey, I heard about this, I want to learn more about it, and always learn something from those things. My favorite to learn about is the Russo-Japanese War, so if you ever have an opportunity to read about that. Lots of great strategic messaging and managing that. So those are great ones, Japan v. Russia. So I'll give you the spoiler there.
Good. I like it. Yeah, there's a lot of different leadership books and libraries out there. I can't list them all. I'm still stuck on the last one I read, which was from Seamaster Loring, that Who Moved My Cheese. I've given that to a couple family members and stuff. Read this book, it's great. I even bought it for my kids. They got a kids version. So kind of, I was like, change. You got to be adaptive to move for change. There's nothing wrong with change. And don't be scared to change, because change is good. So it's something that we kind of enjoy. So I'm looking forward to my next big read. So I might have to take that one or both of those. Okay, let me put that to the list of must dos. Okay, so we'll keep moving on. So these are some of the anonymous questions that came in through our submission there and stuff like that. So we'll see what we've got here. So one of the questions came in. I guess, Chief, will 360-degree evaluations ever be implemented for an enlisted? This would allow subordinates and peers to provide feedback on the performance of the individual. I've heard of something like this possibly happening. I haven't seen anything in writing. I just recently did a chief leadership course, and actually had to get a 360 feedback. First time, actually going through the format and getting in, the 360 feedback from the boss and everybody else, and everybody said I was walking water, yay. I didn't pay anybody, so, but I don't know, I guess I was doing okay. But is that something that they normally do in the office or inside their house?
That hasn't been formally implemented yet.
Yeah.
So it's not
routine yet.
Yeah. So I think it's great. I think, because again, feedback goes up and down the chain. Again, and I always encourage, airmen and NCOs is like, hey, ask your airman how you're doing as a supervisor. Even as a boss, instead of like the DOX, don't let that be your 360, because sometimes, hey, I would say you can't make everyone happy. You try your best to kind of do it, but you try to cater to the squadron as a whole, and not just the one individual. Because once you kind of focus just on the one individual, you kind of lose sight of everyone else that's out there. So it's kind of hard just to say, hey, I'm doing good, or the DOX to say I'm messing up, or whatever I might say. But you got to take it, for what it is. The folks that see you and see the genuine person that you are as a commander, like, yeah, they're a good commander, and you're going to grow. He's a good chief, but you're going to continue to grow. Like I say, you never get 100%. You're always going to continue to grow and develop as a leader, in my opinion. Once you figure out, hey, I've got it all squared away, I'm good to go, that's when you kind of mess up. Because again, you kind of close yourself off to that feedback. Because again, feedback is something that's going to help, make you even better as a leader. Good and bad, some of the bad stuff, like, okay, maybe I need to address myself on that. Or the good stuff is like, hey, this is what I need. As long as I'm getting my point across to my airmen and stuff like that, my NCOs, I'm doing what I'm supposed to. And everybody's getting after their mission. So, feedback. So the 360s, I would like to see something like that happen. I've heard chatter, but nothing written or on paper or on the horizon that I've seen of the 360s being implemented as something mandatory for this side of the house. All right. Deb, do we have anything out in virtual?
No question.
Okay. So this was a pretty long question that came in. Are you aware of any initiatives that the Air Force is participating in to better evaluate leadership capabilities and effectiveness frontline supervisors? Say, for example, you get a young senior airman who gets promoted now and makes staff sergeant their first time out. And now they're supervising people, but they're not really effective as team leaders. ALS only goes in so much on leadership and stuff like that and supervising and stuff. But again, I think supervision is something that you kind of develop over a period of time to how to really be a good supervisor or a good leader. So the Air Force is working on something like that. It's not prime time for the streets or anything like that, but it's more or less preparing the line concept. Hey, how do we prepare these frontline supervisors to really become good supervisors or something? So there's some stuff that's in the works on getting after that question. Target release time around April, May of 21. So there's a lot of new changes that's taking place from the enlisted side of the house that's going to be rolling out here very soon, this summertime frame and stuff, and within the next year. So I can't go too far into details. I don't have all the details, but there are avenues to try to get after that on how do we better develop our frontline supervisors before. Because again, you'll see it. Young senior airmen, make staff and they're thrown out there, especially in the maintenance units. Hey, now you got 15 airmen. Whatever it might be, and you're still trying to figure out how to be a staff sergeant, and grow into that stripe. Some folks can pick it up and run with it. Some people they might struggle a little bit because again, it's something that's developed over time. I'm sure myself, I've probably messed up more than one time, being a first line supervisor. But again, I always say I'm nervous being a supervisor because I don't want to mess up. I want to be able to take care of my airmen, so it keeps me honest. And, I asked those questions for some of the young staffs. I was like, so who's nervous about supervising? And some were like, I'm not, I'm good, I've got it. I was like, if you're nervous, that keeps you humble, that keeps you honest. Because again, you're holding that airman's career in your hands. You can either make or break that airman for some fact that, hey, if you're not giving them that care and feed that they need, then they're like, why am I going to stick around with this? Why am I dealing with this? And I'll just get out, and you've probably lost, the next Chief Master Sergeant Air Force or 4-star General, whatever it might be. So you got to know what you're doing and, kind of guide them in the right direction. So, I'm looking forward to see what these changes are going to be, and as more data comes available to me and I get to dig into it a little bit more, I'm interested in seeing how they're going to roll that out and see where we're going next as an Air Force on this side. And then the next one, the last one I got was Chief, with the Airman Leadership qualities coming online for officers and senior COs, can we anticipate a shift in focus for strat considerations to fall in line with these ALQs? It says, I understand that the discussion always includes parts of them, but I feel like the Air Force is driving home a point when they make job performance number one. So the Airman leadership qualities, executing the mission, leading people, managing resources, and improving the unit. I think for the strat process, I think it will have some play within it, but that's going to kind of come down to that senior rater, the one that has the authorization and make that endorsement. How are they going to look at these things, these quality leadership qualities? I would say yes. Because again, that's what they're measured against. If we're measuring the individuals against these qualities, then that should have some play within the strat process. But again, it comes down to that commander. What is that commander looking at when they want to make that endorsement? So I'll throw that out to you, to my squadron commanders, from a squadron commander's perspective. So those quality determinations, what are some of the things that you might be looking for? If you want to endorse one of your airmen for promote now, must promote or strat.
Can we start with the little brown book, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And say, hey, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? Start with that. And then, big things, look for our, and I think, that those airman leadership qualities, those four, major areas, right? The 10 total, I think, qualities that were listed, right? Looking for, leadership, and what's the individual doing to lead, right? To take care of the people, take care of themselves, and take care of people. And then what are they doing to make things better?
Right.
Right. And so those are kind of, the things that we look for in addition to job performance, right? Are they doing the job, or are they doing the job well? But, what are they doing to make things better and make themselves better?
Right.
I think, and so those are kind of the things we look for, lots of, initiative and showing initiative and getting out and doing mission and taking care of people.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great alignment, again, from the commander perspective, because when it comes to commander's responsibilities, if I says these four areas are what you are responsible for as a commander, so being able to take that and translate it across the force. Within my squadron, we do work with evaluating our civilian populace along those same kinds of criteria. So being able to also translate that in our enlisted force is going to be incredibly worthwhile, because again, when leading people is not just about leading people, it is about how do you manage your resources, because you've got to be able to manage your manpower, your equipment, in order to ensure your people are being led in the right direction and executing the mission. And again, it's not about necessarily just us here now, it's how am I making it better for the next airman that gets into this seat, big A airman. So I think it's a good correlation across the entire force. And I would say that, getting it across all of our enlisted ranks is going to be a boon for everybody moving forward.
Yeah, good, very good. Again, to that question, there's a lot more that's out there that's developing over time. I've got as I plug in with ACC Command Chief and get more data, they're sharing stuff from the AFSIL course and stuff that they go through. So they're sharing information as it comes down, it trickles down. Some of the stuff's like, hey, not ready for prime time just yet, but there are a lot of developing changes, especially from our enlisted perspective on our evaluation systems and all that good stuff. So there are changes that are out there brewing, pre-decisional. So we'll see how it develops. I'm interested to see. I've always been focused, me for one, it's like, hey, you don't have to always be the shiny penny to get the strat. I was like, hey, how are you performing at your job? Let that speak. And how well are you taking care of your people? That's always what resonated with me. I was like, that's great. You're involved in everything. That's perfect. But again, when it comes down to it, how are you performing at your job and how are you taking care of your people? If you're leading them and developing the people around you, and you're making that point, and as well as getting out there and being involved, man, you fit all the parts. To hopefully, get that commander's endorsement, because then it comes down to the commander. It's not just chief's word, like, hey, this is what it's going to be. But, sir, ma'am, this is what we have, this is where I see. And sitting down with the boss and kind of understanding, like, hey, what do you see, what do you think? Because that's their decision. And I'm sure some of these areas might have some play on the strap process as we go forward, on helping them shape their decision on who they want to put their endorsement behind. So I'm seeing that definitely be a talking point for them. All right.
I don't have any other questions. When you're doing wrap up, don't forget to talk about the 1st to 505 virtual walk run ride that's kicking off on the 12th of April. I know someone's excited about that.
So 12th April, hey, that'll be our next kickoff to the 1st to 505. We're wrapping up here, so we're getting too much in our time. But first, let me say a few words. It has been great sharing stage with you guys. You guys are amazing, amazing women. Mothers, leaders, commanders, role models for our younger airmen, younger female airmen to look up and emulate. Like, hey, I want to walk in those shoes just to see these commanders, these ladies do these amazing things and stand in the room like, hey, I'm commanding this room because I'm here because of my performance alone. and I can do what I'm supposed to do, and my bosses and commanders, they look at me and like, hey, that's my peer, and we got the right people in the right positions, and you two as commanders are definitely the right commanders in the right positions, and I'm proud just to be your chief, to kind of help you get to where you need to be. So thank you for sharing the stage with me. I think we got a question roll in. Okay.
Well, we got one more question just rolled in. Not all members in the military are leaders or want to be leaders. Will the Air Force make delineations in ranks, leaders versus worker bees?
So there will be, okay, so this kind of gets back to when Chief Wright was in career technicians, in a sense. It's like, yeah, like everybody doesn't want to kind of continue to progress to be in more of a leadership position, but they are great technicians. And that kind of tied into the extended periods of time. Instead of higher tenure, they extended those out. So yeah, I don't know if there will be a specific delineation, like, hey, you're just going to be a career technician. I don't foresee that being something that's on the table. But again, I don't think there will be any punishment for, hey, you're not getting promoted in time, so hey, we're going to put you out. So hey, we pretty much, you become a career airman in a sense. So. I don't think there will be a specific name for it, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely the career technician or specific technician, that's great because we need those folks. Some folks don't want to take on that extra responsibility, that extra leadership, or they don't have that drive, I should say. But they're great maintenance person or technicians or whatever they're at their jobs, and that's what makes them happy. So hey, more power to them. I love it. That's what we need. Yeah. All right, so that wraps up anything. Any closing remarks from the commanders?
Thank you again for having us. I really appreciate our opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, same. Very, very much appreciate. I was really excited to get the email. Hey, do you want to? I was like,
Yes,
this is an opportunity. This is awesome. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. All right, and with that, we got a couple more virtual coffees. Miss Deb will be pushing out things that's on the horizon here. Hard for me to keep up with them all, but they will be out there in the notes. But again, if you have any follow-up questions or something like that for me or the commanders, please don't hesitate to jot them down in the messenger or in the message, and we'll answer those as best as we can. With that, we will bring this session to a close. Thank you again, commanders, for joining me, and you guys were amazing.